Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the Stramaglio Show. Very creative name, I thought, don't you think, Chris? So, so hey, we have a wonderful guest today on our show. I'm really honored and thrilled. I've come to know this gentleman pretty well the last few years, and it really is an honor. So, let me introduce you to Chris Johnson. And I think most of you know that from ECS, he's with Sharp. So, Chris, say hello, give us your title, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. First of all, it's an honor and a privilege to be a part of your podcast. Let's see. I work for Sharp Electronics. I'm the director of sales for the Central region. I've got about the middle third of the country, and I work with about 60 of our best partners in this area. And it's been quite a ride the 10 years I've been with Sharp.
That's amazing. What were you doing before Sharp, Chris?
I actually have been in this industry a long time, about 25 years now. So I started, back in maybe even before Y2K with Minolta. If you remember when Minolta was just a thing on their own the other day. And, Mike, actually, I was thinking of you. I walked into, because I know you have a history with Minolta too. So I was at Costco the other day and there was a Minolta sign in there. I was like, oh my gosh, the Minolta cameras are still around. It brought back a lot of great memories. But so I was with Minolta and then Konica Minolta for close to 15, 16 years. Great career with them. Great people there. I still am in touch with some of those guys, and really thankful for the opportunity they gave me there because I was able to do just about every piece of this industry with them. So I did. I started out, just as a sales guy selling reader printers, and the my favorite part of that story is, when I walked in, I sold my first one. I brought it up to my boss, Armin Barbarian, who's still there, actually, a great friend and mentor of mine. But I brought the paperwork in, and he looked at it. And he went, "What the heck is this thing?" He didn't even know. It was just an outdated technology, even back then in 2000. So that's where I started.
Well, that's incredible. You and I have a shared alma mater. So I spent 19 years over there before they became Konica Minolta. I have to give props to your boss, John Sheehan and Mike Marusik. They seem to recruit the best. So it's nice to see that you made the segue from one to the other, and with some great people in a new company. So tell us a little bit. I want to get back to the veteran thing because I see the logo behind you. But during your 10 years at Sharp, what have you found to be the culture? What has motivated and inspired you? And I think you said you manage 60 dealers. Is that it?
Yeah, yep. It's actually a little bit more than that, depending on how you categorize it all. But yeah, so I have been with Sharp for about 10 years. A good friend of mine was here and called me. I was actually out of this industry entirely, Mike. I had gotten out. And
Oh
he called me
no,
and
you
said,
escaped.
yes. He called me and said, like you really need to talk to the people here at Sharp and see what's going on here. It's all the things we love about this industry, and Sharp's a great spot. So thank, thankfully, I took advantage of that opportunity, came into Sharp, and got an opportunity to work more. I was much more on the direct sales side. I got an opportunity to really put some of the things actually that I learned in the military about how to build relationships, especially like long term relationships, into practice here and for Sharp. So one of the things that struck me right off the bat, Mike, was even though I had 60 dealers, a lot of them compete in the same markets, right, for the exact same business. The culture among those people was amazing, right? Like they were friendly, they got along, they were willing to share information to try to help everybody get better, and that really kind of surprised me. I had come from a direct sales background where it was very much like whoever's not you is the enemy. And when I got to know some of the owners, and oddly enough, Chip Maselli, who's been critical in my career at Sharp, was somebody who I competed against day to day, his business. So I knew him very well by reputation. And then when I got a chance to meet him, he has been more than generous with his time, with his expertise, and he kind of got me started on the whole veteran path that I've taken with Sharp, and really trying to get involved with bringing more veterans our Sharp, of course, but into the technology industry because of the intangibles that they can bring into this industry, I think are very needed.
So let's talk about Chip a little bit. And frankly, I did an interview with Chip, and it's really one of the best interviews. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but if
Mhm.
you have watched it, he is truly one of the gentlemen and smartest people in our business. And that's where you and I met,
Yeah,
actually, I believe at Pulse.
that's
So
right.
that was the first time you and I had an opportunity to meet some years ago. And for the audience, Chris and I got to know each other, and then we started to join together in the effort to bring more veterans into the industry. You helped us with Vet Tech at ECS, and
Hmm.
now I don't know if it was before or an extension of, but you became very, very active in bringing veterans into Sharp. So how is that working? What does that look like? And how did you craft it? And how's it working?
Perfect. Well, so you're right. It started with really Chip had an American co-op meeting, I think it was, right? And he asked me to speak, and I remember saying to Chip, right, like, hey, you need Mike Maruzic, right? He's going to talk about the industry. He's got the stuff that people really want to say. What can I bring? And he said, talk about something that and talk about your military background, and talk about how you got in the industry. And that really sparked in me, right, like the desire and the interest to go out and figure out, like, how do we get more veterans into this industry. And that has led into the presentation I did there, which was really at that point kind of simple, right? Like, why should you hire a veteran? I think we all kind of have an idea, but it's different when you see the actual skill sets and the intangibles laid out for everybody to take a look at. And then I really started to dig into what are the roadblocks, like why aren't there more veterans jumping into the technology industry? And really the secret to that is we love to hire them, they love to get hired, but finding the match between the two can be very difficult and daunting. And so that's where I've been kind of focusing the last 8-9 years now that we've been doing that, is how do we bridge the gap, and how do we bring those people in, and how do we make sure that they see this as a career path. So as I began doing that, Mike Maruzic, again, great leadership here at Sharp. He said, what we need is a enterprise resource group that's just focused on our military employees. And so we reached out to our employees to find out, right, like what the interest level would be like, and just how many military employees do we have at Sharp. And I think we were really surprised at how many we had. And as is typical in that community, they're all kind of quiet about their service, right? Like, none of them are. I guess I'm the only one standing up, like going, like, "Hey, you know what? We need veterans in here." Everybody else was just wanting to do their job, and I think that's such a character trait that you find, is that kind of quiet competence, and so to get people to really want to stand up and speak out about the issue, they were kind of like, well, I served, but I want to just continue doing that quietly and in my own way. Um, and so we found out we had a lot of that here at Sharp, and a great wealth of backgrounds and resources that we could do. So we found 10 of them who hadn't learned their lesson, Mike, right? Like, volunteered again, but volunteered to be part of building out the Sharp, our military group. And Mike kind of gave me a mandate to figure out what does our military community need at Sharp, and what can we do to help. And after our first meeting, I had a whole list, and I went back, and that whole list, Mike, was all things that we felt like we could do to help Sharp. And I think Mike looked at it and went, "Wait a minute, you did the wrong thing here." And I said, "Hang on. When you get a group of 10 military people together, you are not going to get a lot of complaining. You're not going to get a lot of, I need this, that, or the other thing. What you're going to get is a lot of, how do we move forward? How do we help? How do we make the area we're in better?" And I honestly, when I delivered that list, I couldn't have been more proud.
So, and frankly, I'm proud of what you've accomplished, not only with the veterans, but inside of Sharp. Your reputation now in the industry is exemplary, high integrity, great discipline, and great execution. And in spite of working for, some leadership issues.
That's
Just kidding, guys. Just kidding, John and Mike.
what I
Mike
was going to
has
say.
been,
John Sheehan doesn't teach any of that.
yeah. So, I wanted to kind of touch on Mike a little bit. It's worthy of embarrassing for a moment for him. But we started the Patriot Pack years ago, and nobody really knew what we were doing or how we were doing it. And I want to give props to Mike because he would show up at the most unusual places when we were doing the run, doing the ride. And he certainly made it he made a history of joining us at Stones, one of the great sharp dealers on the East Coast. So my salute to Mike and Sharp for doing all the things that they need to do. We made one big run the last few years over to Sharp headquarters, which was extraordinary, and we thank Sharp for the money, but more importantly, we thank them for the spirit and the inspiration. And you drove that. So again, the Sharp, thank you very, very much to Sharp Management. Now, to go back to what you're doing kind of quickly, so you started with you kicked off this group, and how many veterans were you able to determine actually were employed at Sharp percentage wise, and how have you moved the needle since you started this?
Yeah, I think we were at about 4%, something along those lines when we started. And one of the things we thought of doing is right, just naturally, veterans tend to connect in communities, right? So our first thought was reach out to your community and see, right, who would be interested in a technology career and then working with Sharp. But we wanted to broaden our reach as well, and we wanted to make Sharp kind of a destination, a career for people to come to. And so we knew, right, it's difficult a lot of times to identify, and I don't think you can during the hiring process ask officially, right? If you're a veteran, I think that's a lot of, you've got to kind of self-identify. But as we had people come in, we worked together with Stacy and our recruiting team to say, listen, if you have people who are veterans who are coming in, here are the roadblocks or obstacles we typically see. A lot of times their resumes are written in military jargon. So we offered to help anytime resumes come in, right? We'll take a look at military and help translate that so that our hiring managers would get a resume and understand what they're looking at, right? Like simple things in the civilian world, we might call it operations. In the military world, they might call it logistics, right? In the civilian world, they might want to talk about how many people, what budget have you managed? And in the military world, they're going to talk about things like what kind of equipment did I maintain, what the dollar value, right? And so we wanted to be able to translate some of that kind of stuff for our hiring managers. The other thing we wanted to be able to do is reach more through our recruiting efforts. So we actually participated in essentially rewriting a lot of our job descriptions, right? Just simple stuff so that if you're a military person, it's not so foreign for you, right? Like we use a lot of civilian world jargon when we put that kind of stuff together. And when you're reading it, and as especially you're fresh out of the military, you're reading going, well, I don't have a 4-year degree. I don't have 10 years of experience in whatever Microsoft Office is. I didn't do any of that kind of stuff. So we wanted to add some things in there that would speak directly to, our military community. And then we added things like, hey, if you're in these ranks or if you have these types of military skills, that is a natural fit for these types of requirements for the positions. And so I think that was valuable to put in there. And one of the things we did change, which I think has helped, is we've taken, or I shouldn't say taken, we've added in there 4-year degree or military equivalent, right? Like just something to let people know that your life experiences that you got, even if you spent 3 or 4 years and you did your first contract and got out, that's a world of experience that is still valuable and directly translates to what we're trying to accomplish here.
Man, that is such a great tip. So, anyone in the audience listening to 4-year degree or military equivalency, that is huge. And again, for the audience, this is one of the reasons why veterans kind of congregate together because, we'll say, well, what was your MOS? And I've run into, hiring managers don't have a clue what an MOS is. So in order to help your organization or the industry, I encourage you to take heart, what Chris is suggesting. Make sure the language is aligned for both parties. So I want to go back and talk a little bit, and that's great input, Chris. And again, stand up guys. So let's talk about two things: your Army experience And number one, explain the shirt you're wearing.
I don't know how well you can see it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
we can
so
see it.
perfect. So I joined the Army, geez, back in 2004. And I got this shirt. I think I was telling you, I got this shirt in 2005. So I was in the Army all of about 1 year when I was deployed to Afghanistan. So I joined, I did my training, I came home, and they said, "Hey, congratulations, you won the lotto. You got a free trip to Afghanistan." I remember thinking to myself, right, like I signed up as a reserve. I'm supposed to be like 1 week a month. Like, what happened here? But anyway, I found myself in Afghanistan with one of the most storied units in the U.S. military, the 173rd Airborne Division. You know, if you look back at just the heraldry and the tradition, the history, what an amazing unit! I was attached to the first of the 508th. That's kind of what you're seeing here. Very very proud of that. These are a group of guys who, you know, when I met them in Afghanistan, they were there already for probably 3 months, but they had spent 18 months in Iraq when they told they were going to be there for 90 days. And they ended up spending 18 months. They did the first combat jump into Iraq. Obviously, you could tell I'm very, very proud of what they did and being a part of their history. But it was a group of guys who were, professional soldiers, thank God. And so I got to learn from the best right off the bat when I landed there. And I think they were kind of looking at me like, what, I'm a reserve, first of all, no combat experience at that point. And I was doing a job that they had no clue. It was called psychological operations. And so it sounds really cool, but it is really marketing, almost ground level, what we would hear in the corporate world called guerrilla marketing, right? Like face-to-face marketing. And that's what I did. So getting to know those guys and what they needed. And once they got to know what skill set we had and what we could bring, it was a natural fit. We were all obviously trying to accomplish the exact same thing. They were trying to accomplish, making areas safer by providing the security element, the guns element. I was trying to understand and help out with what the people and the culture, what they were going through, and how we could work together to extend our reach and to make things safer. So they brought the guns, I brought the brains. I like to think of it that way. And together, I think we did our best to make our areas safer places. But what a unique experience and environment to be a part of.
I like that. You brought the brains, they brought the guns, but you're both sky soldiers.
That's exactly right. And it's interesting. Like everybody wants to talk about the guns piece of this whole thing. Nobody, I should say nobody, but people don't want to hear the stories about, the times I just sat down in meetings and did essentially what I do in my civilian career, which is just listen, right? What's going on? What's happening? How can we help? What are the problems you're facing? What are the resources we have to make things better? And we did a lot of that. I'm extremely, I'm far more proud of the things we accomplished to make things safer, just on a day-to-day level versus the going out and capturing the bad guys kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my tremendous respect and appreciation, and I know everyone thanks you for your service. When you're in country like that, there's the seriousness of it, obviously, because of the lethality, but there's also a dark humor about it too.
Oh.
You know, so for everyone that's listening, I can tell you that a reservist coming into his battalion that he was it's a storied battalion, he's 100% right. I
Yeah.
can only imagine you weren't exactly well received with hey, here's your cup of coffee, Chris, thanks for joining the team. So tell me about the experience between how because that's a big transition for people that don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll never forget one of the first meetings. It was my boss at the time. We went in and they were talking about all the stuff that they were going to do, and you can imagine what that is. We're going to do cordon areas, right? We got to search, we got to be aggressive, we're going to get out there and get after people, and these are the kind of things we're going to do. And we looked at the map and said, well, you're going into the safest area we have. All those people there like us, they respect us, and so maybe you want to strike a little bit of a softer tone. And here are some things we could do. And I'll never forget that battalion commander looked at my boss, threw him out of the office, said, "Clearly, you don't understand that we're in the U.S. Army here, son. You got to go." And so here I am, right, like a weekend, and I'm sitting down in my boss's chair, going, "Well, that wasn't any good. How do we get around that?" But my boss was exactly, he was 100% right, and in that, a lot of times finding the commonalities and the things that we can do together would help make areas a lot more friendly and a lot safer. And honestly, it encouraged them. What we really wanted to do, Mike, was influence the people in those areas to work with us instead of against us, right? And that didn't necessarily mean show us where the bad guys are and we're going to shoot them, but it meant a lot of different things.
Well, you definitely won the lottery, unfortunately, and fortunately. I mean, it's crafted you, turned you into the man you are today. How many deployments did you have?
Two. So actual combat deployments. So I've been to Afghanistan. I spent a year there between 2005 and 2006, kind of in the heart of what was going on there. But then I spent a year in Iraq from mid 2009 to mid 2010. In Iraq, we were kind of in the drawdown phase. We were in an area that was kind of part of the Sunni Triangle, but definitely an area that had been very, very hostile. And we were looking to try to just create more friends there so that we could turn over the responsibility to the locals and leave. And one of the things I thought actually was most interesting in that area, Mike, sorry, after we'd been there for about 6 months or so, we were announcing we're getting ready to leave. And that was my job, to be on the street, making sure everybody kind of knew that the Iraqis were going to take over responsibility from us. And the locals, the people who live there, were like, "You can't go." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, first of all, right? Like, this is your government's job and not ours. And they were like, since you guys have been here, you respect us more, you treat us better, and we get more information about what's really going on from you guys, and we really want you to stay. And I'm reporting that kind of stuff back up to my command, and I'm pretty sure they're deleting that stuff out of my reports because we all wanted to go home, right? We didn't want the locals to be like, no, we want you to stay. We want them to be like, we got this, going home. But I just thought I really wanted to make sure that the people around me knew, right? Like, hey, whatever you see, whatever you hear in the news, let me tell you what really happened, right? Those people, I shouldn't say those people. Anyway, they respected us a ton, the locals. And when you get to know them, they wanted the same things we wanted. They wanted to be safe and secure in their houses, right? Like they wanted to have a better future for their families. And they saw us being a part of that.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I want to segue back a little bit because, as you know so well, um, veterans and active duty military personnel, you can't do this job. This is a family fight. It's a family adventure. It's a family experience. So during this really volatile time, and I want to ask you a couple questions about this. But what was the impact on your family? Tell us a little bit about your family.
So, I come from kind of the all American family. You want to talk about being lucky. I really won the lotto the day I was born, and I had no clue. My parents are amazing people. My mom and dad have 5 kids. I think at some point, kind of towards the end of my mother's life, I asked her, like, how the heck did you do this with 5 kids? And she went, I don't know, you just figure it out. And I remember thinking that didn't help me. But today I realize it did, because her ability to just roll with the punches and to get things done with a family of 5 really, it's the heart of what I do now, right? I think that's why, I'm such a good problem solver, is because she never had um, you know, the ability to say, I can't solve that problem, right? With 5 kids, you can't step back and say, I'm not going to do it. Somebody had to get it done, and she did. She's an amazing lady. But and I'll never forget this too. When I joined the military, I was 31 years old, if you can imagine, signing up to go to basic training at that age. And I had to go home and tell my parents. And I remember I was probably the most scared to tell my mother, because, I was afraid she was going to be really mad at me or whatever. And she kind of took a deep breath, and she looked at me and said, whatever you do, we support you. And I don't think at that moment I realized how important that was going to be in my military career. But you ask any service member, you do not serve without your family. And it doesn't matter what you do, they go with you. And I would say that's one of the things, to kind of bring it back to what we do at the Sharp Military Group, that we have recognized that we actually have a military family member as part of our group representing the military family members, because I think what they go through gets forgotten a lot of times, but they serve they serve right along with with their service member. And I can remember coming home from Afghanistan the first time, and my family was so excited to see me. And I remember my mother was trying to give me a hug, and I was like, "Quit touching me," like get away from me, because I just come from an environment literally, right, like I didn't want anybody around me. And so it took me a while to realize, man, family members go through the whole thing too in a little bit of a different way, but they really do, and they have their own set of issues that they face when their soldier deploys. And it's not just phone calls home. It's all the responsibilities that soldier was taking care of in the family that now are theirs. And oh, by the way, they feel just like the soldier does, right? Like they don't want to be recognized. They just want to do what they need to do, and they don't want to necessarily share that they're facing all of these extra hardships now that a valued member of the family is out.
Well, it's interesting because, well, as you know, my daughter is a military veteran spouse or military spouse, and I watched the impact on the immediate family and the extended family. So at the time, when her husband was deployed more than one time, she had kids, and then she had more kids, and then you have to move and move and move. And the impact on the grandparents is the same thing. How do we help? How do we not add a burden? How do we make life easier, not harder? And we do the best we can, but that. And so to take that thought process a little bit further, if I understand it correctly, you just retired after 20 years, right?
Yes, yeah, 22 years.
So how and I'm listening to you talk about how the people didn't want you to leave and how you were trying to extract information and that would make life better or share information and navigate that whole thing. That's like living in the dealer community in some maybe without the guns,
I
but
was going to say sometimes it's easier
it's
than just living
yeah,
in the community.
yeah. So I have a lot of jokes in my head, but I'm going to keep them there. So when you think about all those experiences after 20 some years, and obviously you were in the reserves for quite a bit of that time, how much of that experience and what part of that experience do you say, hey, these two or three things really, really help me manage my job? What are those things, those traits?
Yeah, there are a couple things. I think you're never going to get better leadership training in the whole world or in your whole life than joining the military. And one of the things I really learned about that, and now I am going to give John Sheehan a shout out. He's probably one of the best at this, is trusting your people. When they have expertise in something, when they're good at something, when it's their job, allow them to do it. They may not do it exactly the way you think it should be done. They may surprise you and come up with something even better. And that was like a big lesson. I think a lot of people think you join the army and everything is regimented. You're going to do it just like this. But we used to have a saying that this is a way, not the way, and the best way to get something done is your way, right? Which puts the onus on the individual, right? Like it's your responsibility to get things done. And so those two things kind of went hand in hand. The ability to do things kind of the way you think is the best, I think it builds the responsibility in people, right? Like, hey, I've got the opportunity. I can do things my way. So now I need to take more ownership of it. I think that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And coming from a copier sales world, if you've ever been a sales rep or a sales manager in our industry, the level of management that it takes on a day-to-day basis, right, to keep that going. And what I've learned is the more you let the people who can do the job, the better they are at it.
So thinking we talked about Chip a little bit, and frankly, you're in charge of or responsible for some of the best dealers in the country. If I asked Chip Maselli, and we both know him, he's a dear friend of mine and certainly of yours. What if I asked Chip, what do you like about Chris? What do you really admire about Chris? What do you hope he would say or think he would say?
Well, number one, he would probably say, "Well, I haven't seen him in 6 months." That's Chip's standard response for everything. He's a great guy for that. But you know what? I hope he would say this is somebody who had had this ability to do, to bring veterans into our community, to be passionate, had this passion, and I helped ignite that, and I helped spotlight it. And I hope he would be proud of that because I really am very thankful for him for allowing me to do it.
So, two final questions. One question is more generic in that um, what message would you want to send to the industry? What message do you say, do you want to convey that says, hey, guys, ladies, we really need to do this?
Yeah, I think bringing veterans into this industry is critical to our future. Especially the guys who are doing 3 or 4 or 5 years. They do their time in the military and then they're out looking for where are they going to go. Those 20 somethings have intangibles, just the responsibility, the integrity, the leadership that we really need to take us forward in this industry because there are big change. I mean, you know this, Mike. There are big changes coming to what we do and what our dealers provide as far as services go. Right, like it's not so much about copy counts anymore. It is definitely how can we help your businesses and the value that we bring in a much larger level. And I think it's important though those young guys who grew up now with all of the technology in their hands, they're the ones we need to start looking to for leadership. Where are we going to go next? Right, that they're the future, and if they've got that discipline and that leadership training that you get in the military, you can't substitute for that.
So, great answers because, I mean, these folks are accustomed to, you know, go forward, retreat, adapt, go forward, right?
Yes,
So, little bit of a commercial, I think, for Sharp, right? So you've been there a long time. What is it that you want the industry to be? Maybe that they're not familiar with if they're not a Sharp dealer. What is it you want the industry to know about your company and your team, the people you work with?
sure. Boy, that's a big question. I better get this one right, or I might be working for a different manufacturer next week. But I'll just start with this. When I came to Sharp, and I think I talked about it already, I was really surprised at what a great culture, not just in the company, but within our dealer community we had. It was amazing. And at that American Co-op meeting, just to see people who compete against each other get together to better each other, right? And how do we, and that was the focus of that meeting, was how do we get better? And they continue to do that a lot. So I'm very proud of the culture that we have here at Sharp. Now, the other thing I would say is we're in a spot where 10 years ago, we learned a tough lesson about being backed up and how you get through some of those obstacles. And I think we've got a vision of the future that is different because we were on the razor edge, right? We were close to being out of here. Unfortunately, Foxconn saw something in Sharp that helped us out. And I think we've learned a lot from that. And I know we all talk about like diversity in our industry is critical. But I think what Sharp really brings is we have focused on what we want to be, right? We want to be the hardware platform that information moves on. And we're going to be focused on that, right? What we want to do is be the piece of hardware. We want our dealers to be the great service providers. And I think as we focus on that more and more, I think the dealership community respects the fact that what we want to do is provide them with the equipment and then help them build out the service programs around that, whatever it may be, however they do it. We've got a great support team to get in there and say, okay, how do you want to service your customers? What is your goals, right? And we talk about this all the time in our sales meetings. As a matter of fact, I think my sales team is probably tired of hearing me talk about communication is critical, and it's a two-way street. We have to know and understand where Sharp wants to go, but we also have to know and understand where our dealers want to go so that we can build that kind of a path for both sides forward. And it's not the same for everybody. We really do a lot, and we're given a lot of leeway to do some custom things that are focused on the individual dealership and how they want to go forward and what their vision is. So at my level, now I actually spend more time talking with our partners about what is that vision and how do we support it.
It's interesting. Somebody told me a long time ago, a conversation that goes one way is a directive, and that's kind of sticks. And the other thing I remember when I interviewed Mike Marusek during one of my shows, he had said, "Be a good neighbor." So I think part of his philosophy is just that. Sharp is a good neighbor, with the resellers, the dealers, and so on. So that's a great culture and a great thing to think about as you go forward with your job. So
Hey
I
Mike,
got
can I tell
one.
one story there? I want to tell one quick story there because this will highlight the issue. So the one of the very first times I sat in a management meeting with Mike Marusik, and he had up on the board, he had all of the manufacturers, and he listed out what their competitive advantage was. Right, he went through and through and through and through. And when he got to Sharp, he said our competitive advantage is that we're lean and mean. And I thought, I don't know about that. But he said, you know what that allows us to do? It allows us to build better relationships. It allows us to adjust faster to our partners' needs, and it allows us to be more proactive in what we see coming in the future. And when he got done with that, I said, you know what? I picked the right spot out of all those manufacturers up there. If you'd have wiped the names off the top and just said, what benefits do they bring to the industry? That's the one I want to be a part of.
Well, that's a beautiful way to really bring closure to the interview. And I would say not only lean and mean, but the thing I like the best is that Sharp actually lives it. A lot of people say it, but it seems to me that your team and your company actually live and breathe it. So I'm going to have one final fun question and see if let's. I ask everybody about Sinatra. It's actually a law for me. It's a kind of a rule. So, do you have a favorite Frank Sinatra song?
I do. And I think anybody who knows me will understand why this song is so important to me. It's Fly Me to the Moon.
And "Fly Me to the Moon" means what to you? Why?
You'll have to ask me in a personal moment.
Okay. All right, then we'll skip that part. But I have to admit, I give you a big salute for the interview, and that's a great song choice. And honestly, Chris, we are honored to have you on this show, and I hope and encourage people to take this interview and send it to your management team, and have everyone listen to the many gold nuggets that you shared with everybody. So I will say, sir, thank you for your service, and we're honored to have you.
Well, I appreciate it. And anybody who needs help, whether you're a veteran looking to get into the industry or you're running one of our many great partners out there who are thinking to yourself, how do I attract more? How do I build out a group like this? We are happy that we've got a whole team here who would be just honored to help out.
Well, thank you, Chris, and you have a great day, great week, and we'll talk to you in the next event.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.